Title: A Journey to New York. Listen carefully. Chapter 1: The Decision. Lucas had always dreamed of visiting New York City, the place he'd seen countless times in movies and on TV. Born and raised in a small town, the bright lights and fast pace of the big city seemed like an exciting contrast to his quiet life. After years of saving up and planning, he finally decided that it was time to make his dream a reality. He booked a flight, packed his bags, and prepared himself for the adventure of a lifetime. As he prepared for the trip, Lucas felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Traveling so far from home was new to him, and he didn't quite know what to expect. Friends and family shared stories of their own travels, some of which filled him with anticipation, while others left him a bit worried. Despite his fears, he knew that this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. The night before his flight, Lucas could hardly sleep. He lay in bed, thinking about all the iconic places he would visit: Times Square, the Statue of Liberty, and Central Park. He imagined walking down the busy streets, taking in the sights and sounds that define New York. His mind raced with all the possibilities, making sleep seem almost impossible. Early the next morning, Lucas arrived at the airport, his heart pounding with excitement. He checked in, went through security, and found his gate, feeling a sense of accomplishment already. As he waited to board, he looked around at the other passengers and wondered if they were just as eager for their own journeys. It was a comforting thought, knowing that he was not alone in his excitement. Finally, the boarding call echoed through the terminal, and Lucas stood up, clutching his ticket. This was it. He was finally on his way to New York. As he stepped onto the plane, he took a deep breath, feeling both the weight of his journey and the thrill of stepping into the unknown. Chapter 2: Arrival in the City That Never Sleeps. After a long flight, Lucas could hardly contain his excitement as the plane descended toward New York City. Looking out the window, he saw the iconic skyline with its towering skyscrapers, each one representing dreams, ambitions, and the stories of millions. As soon as the plane touched down, he felt a surge of energy. This was it. He had arrived in New York City. Navigating the bustling airport was a new experience for him. People rushed in every direction, some meeting loved ones, others heading out on their own journeys. Lucas retrieved his luggage and made his way to the airport exit, feeling a bit overwhelmed but determined. He hailed a cab, and soon enough, he was on his way into the heart of the city. As the cab drove through the city streets, Lucas's eyes were glued to the window. The lights, the people, and the massive buildings were even more impressive than he had imagined. Each corner seemed to offer something new and exciting. From food carts to street performers, every part of the city seemed to be alive. The driver pointed out landmarks, and Lucas felt a surge of pride just being here, part of this incredible place. He arrived at his hotel, checked in, and took a moment to unpack. The room was small, but the view was spectacular. He could see the city stretching out before him, a sea of lights under the evening sky. He decided to take a walk, feeling the pulse of the city for the first time. The sounds of honking cars, distant chatter, and music created a unique rhythm that made him feel truly alive. That night, Lucas lay in bed, watching the city lights through his window. He felt like he was in the center of the universe, in a place where anything was possible. Tomorrow, he would begin his exploration, but tonight he simply let himself soak in the magic of the city that never sleeps. Chapter 3: Exploring Times Square. The next morning, Lucas woke up early, eager to begin his adventure. His first destination was Times Square, a place he had always dreamed of seeing in person. As he walked through the streets, he could feel the energy of the city, each step bringing him closer to the heart of it all. When he finally arrived at Times Square, he was in awe. The massive billboards, bright lights, and bustling crowds created a scene that was almost surreal. Lucas spent hours exploring Times Square, taking in everything around him. He watched street performers, browsed through shops, and even tried some classic New York street food. The diversity of people fascinated him. It was as if the whole world was represented in one place. He took countless photos, wanting to capture every moment and every detail of this iconic location. As the day went on, Lucas decided to take a break and found a small cafe nearby. Sitting by the window with a coffee in hand, he watched the endless flow of people pass by. Each face told a different story, and he wondered where they were going and what had brought them to this incredible city. For the first time, he truly felt like he was part of New York, connected to everyone around him. Inspired by the energy of Times Square, Lucas continued his exploration. He visited nearby landmarks and discovered hidden gems that he hadn't planned on seeing. The city was full of surprises, and he loved every moment. By the time the sun began to set, he felt like he had only scratched the surface of what New York had to offer. That evening, he returned to his hotel, exhausted but exhilarated. Looking back on his day, he realized that Times Square was more than just a tourist attraction. It was a symbol of the city's spirit, a place where dreams collided and possibilities felt endless. He couldn't wait to see what the rest of his trip would bring. Chapter 4: A Day in Central Park. On his third day in New York, Lucas decided to visit Central Park, the iconic green oasis in the middle of the city. As he entered the park, he was struck by the contrast between the peaceful scenery and the bustling city surrounding it. The towering trees, calm lakes, and open fields offered a welcome break from the energy of the city, and he felt a sense of calm wash over him. He spent hours wandering through the park, discovering its many attractions. He visited Bethesda Terrace, admired the beautiful fountain, and even took a rowboat out on the lake. Everywhere he looked, people were enjoying the park in their own ways. Families having picnics, artists painting, and couples walking hand in hand. The park seemed to bring everyone together, providing a space for peace in the middle of the busy city. At lunchtime, Lucas found a small spot by the lake where he enjoyed a quiet picnic. Sitting there, he reflected on his journey so far. New York had been everything he had imagined and more. He realized that, while he had come here for the excitement, it was moments like this that he would remember most. The city's beauty wasn't just in its famous landmarks. It was in the unexpected, peaceful moments like this one. After lunch, Lucas continued exploring the park, stumbling upon hidden paths and secluded areas where he could escape from the crowds. He found a spot with a stunning view of the city skyline and sat down to take it all in. Watching the buildings rise above the trees, he felt a deep appreciation for New York, a city that managed to combine nature and modernity in such a unique way. As the sun began to set, Lucas made his way out of the park, feeling refreshed and recharged. Central Park had given him a new perspective on the city, showing him that even in the busiest places, there was always room for peace and reflection. He was ready to continue his journey, eager to see what else New York had in store for him. Chapter 5. Farewell, New York. On his last day in New York, Lucas decided to visit one final destination, the Statue of Liberty. Taking a ferry across the harbor, he looked back at the city skyline, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and gratitude. The statue was as impressive as he had imagined, a symbol of freedom and hope that stood tall over the city. As he walked around the monument, he thought about all the people who had come to New York in search of a better life, just like he had come in search of adventure. Standing at the base of the statue, Lucas felt a deep connection to the city and its history. He realized that New York was more than just a place. It was an idea, a promise of opportunity and new beginnings. He took a moment to reflect on his own journey, grateful for the experiences and memories he had made. This trip had been everything he had hoped for and more. After returning from the statue, Lucas spent his last evening wandering through the city one last time. He visited his favorite spots, capturing the sights and sounds in his mind. He felt a sense of sadness at leaving, but he knew that he would carry these memories with him forever. New York had become a part of him, and he promised himself that he would return someday. As he prepared to leave the city, Lucas felt a renewed sense of purpose. New York had taught him to dream bigger, to embrace change, and to believe in the impossible. He knew that this journey was just the beginning, and that there were many more adventures waiting for him. With one last look at the city skyline, Lucas boarded his flight home, feeling both grateful and inspired. His journey to New York had changed him, and he knew that he would never forget the city that had welcomed him with open arms. Chapter 6. Discovering the art scene. With an extra few days in New York, Lucas decided to dive deeper into the city's cultural side. His first stop was the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, a place he had heard about for years but never imagined he'd get to visit. As he stepped inside, he was immediately captivated by the variety of art pieces, from famous paintings by artists like Van Gogh and Picasso to unique contemporary installations. The museum felt like a world of its own, filled with creativity, history, and imagination. He wandered through the galleries, taking his time to admire each piece. One painting in particular caught his eye, a vibrant work by Jackson Pollock. The chaotic, colorful strokes felt like a reflection of New York's own energy, and Lucas felt a strange connection to it. He realized that art had a way of telling stories and emotions, just like the city itself. After spending hours in MoMA, Lucas decided to explore the nearby art galleries in Chelsea. The neighborhood was filled with small galleries showcasing the work of emerging artists, and he enjoyed the intimate creative atmosphere. Many of the artists were present, eager to discuss their work with visitors. Lucas found himself inspired, not just by the art, but by the passion of the people who created it. To end his art-filled day, Lucas attended a small theater performance in Greenwich Village. The theater was modest, but the actors brought such life to the stage that he was fully immersed. As he watched, he thought about how the city was a place of dreams for so many people, and he felt privileged to witness their expressions and stories. As he walked back to his hotel, Lucas felt more connected to the artistic spirit of New York. The city's creativity had awakened something within him, and he looked forward to seeing how it might influence his own life when he returned home. Chapter 7: Culinary Adventures. Determined to make the most of his last few days, Lucas decided to explore New York's diverse culinary scene. He started with a classic bagel for breakfast, loaded with cream cheese and smoked salmon. It was a simple meal, but the freshness and flavor were unmatched. Sitting in a cozy deli, he felt like a true New Yorker, savoring one of the city's iconic foods. For lunch, he ventured into Chinatown, where he found a small restaurant with authentic Chinese dishes. He ordered dumplings and a spicy noodle soup, enjoying the bold flavors and unique textures. The restaurant was filled with locals and tourists alike, and Lucas loved the lively, welcoming atmosphere. It amazed him how each neighborhood in New York had its own character and culinary specialties. Dinner took him to Little Italy, where he enjoyed a hearty plate of pasta and a glass of wine in a family-run restaurant. The owner, an older Italian man, stopped by his table to chat, sharing stories about his life in New York and the history of the restaurant. Lucas was moved by the man's warmth and the sense of tradition that filled the place. It reminded him of how New York was a city built by immigrants, each bringing their culture and flavors to the melting pot. To end his culinary journey, Lucas decided to treat himself to a slice of New York-style pizza. He found a famous pizzeria and ordered a classic cheese slice. The thin crust, gooey cheese, and tangy sauce were perfection. As he took his first bite, he felt like he was tasting the soul of the city itself. Each meal had given him a taste of New York's diversity and reminded him of the power of food to connect people. Chapter 8: The City from Above. Eager to see the city from a different perspective, Lucas decided to visit the Empire State Building. The building's towering presence was awe-inspiring, and he was thrilled to go to the top and see New York from above. As the elevator ascended, his anticipation grew, and when he finally stepped onto the observation deck, he was left speechless by the view. The city stretched out beneath him, a vast landscape of buildings, streets, and lights. From this height, he could see landmarks like Central Park, the Statue of Liberty, and the Brooklyn Bridge. The sight was breathtaking, and Lucas felt a new appreciation for the scale and beauty of New York. It was a city full of life and movement, and yet from up here, it seemed peaceful and calm. As he looked out over the city, Lucas thought about everything he had experienced so far. He felt grateful for every moment, every sight, and every encounter. The view reminded him of how small he was in the grand scheme of things, but it also made him feel connected to something greater. Before leaving, he took a final look at the city, capturing the moment in his mind. He knew that this memory would stay with him forever, a reminder of the time he spent in New York and the impact it had on him. He took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure and fulfillment. As he descended back to the streets below, Lucas felt different. His journey had given him a new perspective, and he was ready to carry this experience with him wherever he went. Chapter 9. Reflections at the 9/11 Memorial. On his second to last day, Lucas visited the 9/11 Memorial to pay his respects. The memorial was a somber reminder of the tragedy that had changed New York forever. The twin reflecting pools, with the names of the victims engraved around them, were a powerful and emotional sight. As he stood there, Lucas felt a deep sense of sadness, but also admiration for the city's resilience. He walked slowly around the pools, reflecting on the lives lost and the impact of that day. The atmosphere was quiet, with visitors showing respect and reverence. Lucas was moved by the strength of the people who had rebuilt their lives after such a devastating event, and he felt honored to be in a place of remembrance. Inside the 9/11 Museum, he learned more about the events of that day and the stories of bravery and unity that emerged. Each exhibit told a story of courage, compassion, and the human spirit's ability to overcome. Lucas was deeply affected, and he found himself reflecting on his own life and the importance of resilience. Leaving the memorial, he felt a renewed sense of gratitude for the life he had. He realized that New York was not just a city of dreams and excitement, but also one of strength and survival. It had faced incredible challenges and had emerged stronger, a testament to the people who called it home. As he walked back, Lucas felt humbled and inspired. The memorial had left a lasting impact on him, and he knew that this experience would shape his outlook on life going forward. Chapter 10. Saying Goodbye. On his last morning in New York, Lucas took a final walk through the city. He revisited some of his favorite spots, from the busy streets of Times Square to the quiet paths of Central Park. He wanted to take in every detail, every sound, and every sight, knowing it would be a while before he could return. He stopped at a small cafe and ordered a coffee, sitting by the window as he watched the city wake up. The people, the cars, and the hustle and bustle felt different now. He felt like he understood the city in a way he hadn't before. New York was more than a place. It was a spirit, a feeling of endless possibility and resilience. As he made his way to the airport, Lucas thought about how much he had changed. New York had challenged him, inspired him, and shown him new perspectives. He felt more confident, more open-minded, and more appreciative of the world around him. The city had left a mark on him, one that he knew would stay with him forever. Boarding his plane, Lucas took a final look at the city skyline, feeling a sense of peace and closure. He knew that this wasn't goodbye, but rather a see you later. New York had become a part of him, and he promised himself that he would return one day. As the plane took off, Lucas leaned back in his seat, a smile on his face. His journey to New York had come to an end, but he knew that its memories and lessons would stay with him for a lifetime. Chapter 11. Unexpected Friendships. Lucas's flight had been delayed, giving him an unexpected extra day in New York. He decided to make the most of it by visiting the High Line, a unique park built on an elevated railway track. As he walked along the green pathway, surrounded by gardens and overlooking the city streets, he felt a calmness settle over him. New York was full of surprises, and this peaceful spot above the city was a hidden gem. While admiring the view, Lucas struck up a conversation with a fellow traveler named Sarah. She was also exploring the city alone, and they quickly bonded over their shared love of travel and adventure. They ended up spending hours walking along the High Line, sharing stories about their lives and the places they'd visited. The conversation was easy, and Lucas found himself opening up in a way he hadn't expected. As the sun set, they found a small cafe nearby where they continued their conversation. Sarah talked about her job as a photojournalist, and Lucas was fascinated by her tales of capturing life's most intense moments. She encouraged him to see New York through the eyes of a storyteller, to not just visit places, but to look for the stories behind them. This idea intrigued Lucas, who had never thought about his travels in this way. By the time they said goodbye, Lucas felt grateful for the encounter. Meeting Sarah had given him a new perspective on travel and on life. She had reminded him that the connections we make with others are often as memorable as the places we visit. As he walked back to his hotel, he felt inspired to keep exploring with an open mind, knowing that there was always something new to discover and someone new to meet. Chapter 12. A Taste of Broadway. One of Lucas's biggest dreams was to see a Broadway show, and he was determined to make it happen on his last night in New York. He managed to get a last-minute ticket to a famous musical, and as he entered the theater, he felt a thrill unlike any other. The grand interior, the sparkling chandeliers, and the anticipation in the air made the moment feel almost magical. As the lights dimmed and the curtain rose, Lucas was transported into a world of music, dance, and storytelling. The performers' talent left him speechless. Their voices filled the theater, and their emotions felt raw and real. Lucas found himself completely absorbed in the story, laughing, crying, and cheering along with the rest of the audience. It was as if he had become part of something bigger, a shared experience that transcended words. During intermission, Lucas struck up a conversation with the couple seated next to him. They were lifelong New Yorkers and had seen dozens of shows over the years. They shared their insights on the best theaters, upcoming productions, and even the history of Broadway itself. Lucas was fascinated by their passion for the arts and appreciated their warmth and willingness to share their knowledge with a visitor. As the show came to an end, Lucas felt a sense of fulfillment. Watching a Broadway performance had been one of his dreams, and the experience was even more powerful than he had imagined. He left the theater with a newfound appreciation for the arts and for the way stories could bring people together. The memory of that night would stay with him, a reminder of the beauty and magic that New York had to offer. Chapter 13. Morning Reflections by the Brooklyn Bridge. On his final morning, Lucas decided to visit the Brooklyn Bridge. He arrived just as the sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the city. The bridge stretched before him, its iconic arches standing tall against the morning sky. As he walked along the bridge, taking in the view of Manhattan and the East River, he felt a profound sense of peace. The bridge was more than just a structure. It was a symbol of connection, linking two worlds, Manhattan and Brooklyn, past and present, dreams and reality. As he walked, Lucas thought about his own journey, the moments of growth and self-discovery he had experienced. New York had challenged him, inspired him, and taught him to see the world through new eyes. Standing in the middle of the bridge, Lucas paused to take in the view. The city's skyline stretched before him, a reminder of the countless lives and stories that made up this vibrant place. He thought about the people he had met, the cafe owner in Little Italy, the photojournalist on the High Line, the couple at the theater. Each person had shared a piece of their world with him, enriching his own story. As he continued across the bridge, Lucas felt a surge of gratitude. This city had given him more than he could have imagined, and he knew he would carry its spirit with him wherever he went. Reaching the other side, he turned back for one last look, feeling a sense of closure and contentment. He was ready to return home, but New York would always be a part of him. Chapter 14. A Farewell to Remember. Lucas spent his final afternoon in Central Park, finding a quiet bench where he could sit and reflect. The park was bustling with activity, families having picnics, musicians playing, children laughing. It was a place of joy and tranquility, a reminder that even in a city as fast-paced as New York, there were spaces for peace and connection. As he watched the people around him, Lucas thought about his own journey. This trip had been more than just a vacation. It had been a time of self-discovery. He had come here to see the sights, but he was leaving with something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of himself and a renewed sense of purpose. He spent the rest of the afternoon revisiting his favorite spots in the city, capturing the moments in his mind. He walked through Times Square one last time, savoring the energy and excitement. He stopped by a street vendor for a hot dog, savoring the simple, classic taste of New York. Every moment felt precious, a piece of the city he was carrying with him. As evening approached, Lucas found a quiet spot overlooking the Hudson River. He watched as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting a warm glow over the city. It was a perfect farewell, a moment of beauty and peace that seemed to capture everything he had come to love about New York. Chapter 15. Home with a New Vision. When Lucas finally boarded his flight home, he felt a mixture of sadness and fulfillment. His time in New York had been everything he had hoped for and more, and he knew that he was leaving a piece of his heart behind. But he also felt a sense of excitement for what lay ahead, knowing that he was returning with new insights and inspiration. During the flight, he reflected on everything he had learned. New York had taught him to embrace change, to connect with others, and to see the world through a different lens. He had discovered the beauty of unexpected encounters, the power of storytelling, and the importance of resilience. These were lessons he would carry with him, guiding him as he moved forward in life. When he arrived home, Lucas felt like a different person. His experiences in New York had given him a new perspective on his own life and dreams. He was inspired to pursue his passions, to explore new places, and to connect with others in meaningful ways. The city had shown him the endless possibilities that life had to offer, and he was ready to embrace them. As he settled back into his routine, Lucas often found himself reminiscing about his time in New York. The memories brought a smile to his face and reminded him of the adventure he had lived. He knew that he would return someday, but for now, He was content, knowing that he had experienced the magic of the city and carried its spirit with him wherever he went. Chapter 16. Finding community in unexpected places. Returning to New York felt like a homecoming, and Lucas wanted to connect more deeply with the city. He sought out a community event at a neighborhood center in Harlem, where locals gathered every week to support small businesses and celebrate their cultural heritage. The event was filled with live music, street food, and artisans selling handcrafted goods, all woven together with a vibrant energy unique to the neighborhood. Lucas wandered through the stalls, marveling at the variety of crafts and foods. He felt a warmth in the air, not just from the bustling activity, but from the sense of unity among the people. Striking up conversations with vendors, Lucas learned the stories behind their products. He met a young woman who made jewelry inspired by her Caribbean heritage and an elderly man selling homemade jams and preserves passed down through generations. Each conversation left Lucas feeling more connected, as if he were part of something larger than himself. It struck him that New York, in all its diversity, was built on the stories and dreams of its people. This was a city where everyone could find a place to belong. Later, Lucas joined a drum circle that had formed on the sidewalk. The rhythmic beats, resonating with the sounds of the city, felt like a heartbeat connecting everyone in attendance. People danced, clapped, and laughed together, strangers united in a single moment. Lucas was drawn into the energy, losing himself in the music and the joy surrounding him. It was a reminder of the power of community and the simple beauty of coming together. As the evening wore on, Lucas found himself feeling grateful for the experience. Harlem had shown him a side of New York that went beyond the glitz and glamour. It was a place of resilience, strength, and pride, a community that had held on to its roots while embracing the future. He realized that every neighborhood in New York had its own heartbeat, its own rhythm, and he felt privileged to be a part of it, even if just for a moment. Walking back through the lively streets, Lucas felt a profound sense of belonging. This wasn't his hometown, but it had welcomed him with open arms, showing him a side of humanity that transcended backgrounds and borders. As he left Harlem, he knew that the memories of this night would stay with him, a reminder of the power of community and the beauty of shared experiences. Chapter 17. The Magic of Jazz in Greenwich Village. Seeking another unique experience, Lucas ventured to Greenwich Village, a neighborhood known for its rich history and vibrant music scene. He found a small, dimly lit jazz club nestled in a quiet corner, where the sound of smooth saxophone melodies drifted out onto the street. Stepping inside, he was transported back in time to an era where jazz was king, and the energy in the room was electric. Musicians took turns performing, each adding their unique style and passion to the music, creating a magical atmosphere. Sitting at a small table by the stage, Lucas ordered a drink and settled in, captivated by the music. The saxophonist played with such emotion that each note felt like a story being told, raw and powerful. The room was silent except for the music, every listener drawn into the spellbinding performance. Lucas closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him, feeling each note resonate within him. It was as if the music was speaking to him, telling him secrets about the city and its soul. During a break, Lucas struck up a conversation with a fellow patron, an older man who had been coming to the club for decades. The man shared stories of the jazz greats he had seen perform, painting a picture of a time when the village was alive with artists, poets, and musicians. Lucas listened, fascinated, as the man spoke of New York's golden age, when creativity flowed freely and the city was a haven for dreamers and misfits alike. The stories added depth to the night, and Lucas felt a sense of connection to the history around him. As the evening progressed, the band played a final, soulful tune that lingered in the air long after the last note faded. The applause was thunderous, filled with gratitude and admiration for the musicians who had poured their hearts into the performance. Lucas joined in, feeling a deep respect for the art and the artists who kept this timeless music alive. The experience left him with a newfound appreciation for jazz, a genre he had only recently begun to explore. Walking out into the night, Lucas felt a sense of wonder. Greenwich Village had shown him a world of art and expression that he hadn't fully understood before. He felt like he had touched the heart of New York's creative spirit, and the memories of that night would stay with him. A reminder of the city's magic and the power of music to bring people together. Chapter 18. Exploring the hidden corners of the city. Determined to uncover more of New York's hidden gems, Lucas spent the next day wandering through neighborhoods off the beaten path. He started in the Lower East Side, a historic area with a rich immigrant history. The streets were lined with old tenement buildings, and he could feel the echoes of the past in the architecture. Lucas visited the Tenement Museum, where he learned about the lives of immigrants who had come to New York seeking a better future. Their stories of hardship and hope resonated with him, a reminder of the sacrifices people had made to build their lives here. Afterward, he ventured into the East Village, a neighborhood known for its countercultural history and eclectic vibe. He stumbled upon a small bookstore filled with vintage novels, zines, and poetry collections from local writers. The owner, a retired professor, spoke passionately about literature and art, encouraging Lucas to explore the works of lesser-known authors. Lucas spent hours browsing the shelves, discovering voices that felt raw and authentic, capturing the spirit of a city that celebrated individuality. In the afternoon, Lucas found a cozy cafe where artists, students, and musicians gathered. He struck up a conversation with a young painter who shared her journey of finding her artistic voice in New York. She spoke about the challenges of pursuing art in such a competitive city, but expressed a fierce love for its endless inspiration. Lucas admired her courage and felt inspired by her determination to follow her passion, no matter the obstacles. As the day came to an end, Lucas realized that New York was filled with countless stories waiting to be discovered. Every corner, every street had its own tale, woven together to create the vibrant tapestry of the city. He felt grateful for the chance to see these hidden sides of New York, to connect with the people who made it so unique. It was a reminder that the city was more than its famous landmarks. It was a living, breathing entity filled with dreams and aspirations. Leaving the East Village, Lucas felt a profound sense of appreciation. He had come to New York seeking adventure, and the city had given him so much more. He had seen its beauty and its challenges, its history and its dreams. As he headed back, he knew that these experiences would stay with him, a part of his journey that had changed him forever. Chapter 19, A New Understanding of Resilience. With only a day left before his departure, Lucas returned to the 9/11 Memorial, feeling a need to say goodbye to a place that had deeply moved him. He walked around the reflecting pools, reading the names engraved in stone, each one representing a life cut short. The memorial was a solemn reminder of the city's strength and resilience, a place of reflection and reverence. Lucas felt a deep respect for the people of New York, who had endured unimaginable loss but had emerged stronger. Inside the museum, Lucas took his time exploring the exhibits, which told stories of heroism, loss, and survival. He was particularly moved by the personal artifacts on display: a firefighter's helmet, a letter from a loved one, a crumpled ID card. Each item told a story of bravery and love, a reminder of the humanity that had shone through in the darkest of times. Lucas felt a mixture of sorrow and admiration, understanding now that resilience was more than just surviving. It was about honoring the past while building a future. In a quiet corner, Lucas met a volunteer who shared her personal experience of that day. Her voice trembled as she recounted her memories, but her strength was evident. She spoke of the city's unity in the aftermath, of strangers helping strangers, of hope rising from the ashes. Her words resonated deeply with Lucas, and he felt a renewed sense of respect for the city and its people. Leaving the museum, Lucas felt a profound sense of perspective. The experience had reminded him of the fragility of life and the strength of the human spirit. He realized that New York was a city that had faced incredible challenges but had never lost its heart. It was a city that honored its past while embracing the future, a place of resilience, hope, and courage. Walking through the city one last time, Lucas felt a deep connection to New York. This was more than a city. It was a testament to the power of unity, the resilience of the human spirit. He knew that this experience had changed him, that he was leaving with a greater understanding of what it meant to be resilient, to keep moving forward no matter the obstacles. Chapter 20, A Final Farewell. On his last day, Lucas decided to take one final walk through Central Park, reflecting on his journey and everything he had experienced. The park was quiet, the early morning light casting a gentle glow over the trees and paths. As he wandered along the winding trails, he felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, nostalgia, and a hint of sadness. This city had given him so much, and he felt a deep sense of connection that he hadn't expected. Sitting on a bench overlooking the lake, Lucas thought back to his first day in New York, filled with excitement and nerves. He remembered how each experience had built on the last, how the city had slowly revealed its layers to him. New York was like an old friend now, familiar, yet ever-changing. Each neighborhood he had explored had shown him a new side of its character, and each person he had met had left a mark on his heart. He realized that he wasn't the same person who had arrived here, and he felt grateful for the growth the journey had brought him. The city was beginning to wake up around him. Joggers ran along the paths, families strolled with children, and dog walkers greeted each other with friendly nods. Watching the rhythm of life in Central Park, Lucas felt a sense of peace. This place, a haven within the bustling city, was a reminder of the balance between chaos and calm that New York embodied. He admired the people who called this city home, who navigated its challenges and celebrated its beauty every day. In a way, he felt like he had become part of this rhythm, if only for a brief time. As he walked toward the edge of the park, Lucas passed a street performer playing a soft, soulful melody on the saxophone. The music filled the air, blending with the morning breeze and the distant sounds of the city. Lucas stopped, closing his eyes and letting the music wash over him. The song seemed to capture the spirit of New York, joyful, melancholic, resilient. It was a fitting farewell, a reminder of the city's soul that he had come to know and love. When the song ended, Lucas approached the musician, thanked him, and left a small tip, feeling that this final interaction was a perfect end to his journey. As he made his way back to his hotel, Lucas took a moment to look around, taking in the sights and sounds one last time. He walked slowly, savoring each step, each view, each memory. The tall buildings, the vibrant signs, the people rushing by, all of it had become familiar, a part of his story. He felt a bittersweet pang in his heart, knowing he was leaving but carrying the city with him. New York had become a part of him, and he knew he would return someday, drawn back by the memories and the magic he had found here. At the airport, waiting to board his flight, Lucas reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He thought of the sights he had seen, the conversations he had shared, the lessons he had learned. New York had shown him the power of resilience, the importance of connection, and the beauty of embracing the unknown. He boarded the plane. Lucas looked out the window, watching the city's skyline fade into the distance. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, knowing that New York would always hold a special place in his heart. This wasn't just the end of a trip. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one shaped by the unforgettable memories and experiences he would carry with him forever. Chapter 21. Revisiting the landmarks with new eyes. Returning to New York after a short break, Lucas felt a renewed sense of wonder as he revisited some of the city's iconic landmarks. He went to the Empire State Building, where he'd been on his first day, but this time the view felt different. The skyscrapers and bustling streets below seemed more familiar, as if he could trace memories across the cityscape. The lights glittered as he stood on the observation deck, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't felt before. He realized that this wasn't just a famous view anymore. It was a panorama filled with places he'd come to know and appreciate. Next, Lucas headed to Times Square, prepared for the energy that had once felt overwhelming. The flashing lights and crowds were as vibrant as ever. But now, instead of feeling like an outsider, Lucas moved confidently through the throngs of tourists and locals alike. He stopped to watch the street performers and even joined in a dance circle, laughing along with strangers who had all come to experience the same excitement. This wasn't just an observation, it was participation, and Lucas found himself caught up in the sheer joy of being part of the city's rhythm. Eager to explore more, he returned to the Statue of Liberty, taking a ferry across the harbor. The statue, a symbol of freedom and hope, seemed to resonate with him on a deeper level this time. As he gazed at Lady Liberty, he thought of the millions of immigrants who had arrived with dreams and aspirations, just as he had come in New York with his own goals. The statue felt like a reminder of courage and resilience, qualities Lucas had found within himself over his time in the city. Standing on the deck of the ferry, he felt a surge of gratitude for the journey that had brought him here. Lucas spent the afternoon wandering through Central Park, taking paths he hadn't yet explored. He stumbled upon quiet corners filled with blooming flowers, hidden bridges, and serene lakes. Every corner of the park felt like a new discovery, a place where he could breathe and reflect. Sitting on a bench beneath a canopy of trees, he felt the peace of nature within the bustling city. This park had become his refuge, a place to escape, to dream, and to remember that the world was vast and filled with beauty. As the sun began to set, Lucas walked back, feeling a sense of completion. He had revisited the landmarks that had once seemed imposing, finding comfort and familiarity in them now. New York had become more than just a destination. It was a part of him, a place he would carry with him, no matter where he went. Chapter 22, Connections That Last. Lucas decided to reconnect with some of the friends he had made along his journey. First, he met up with David, the tour guide who had shown him the best local food spots. They reminisced about the first food tour, laughing about how uncertain and reserved Lucas had been then. Over a meal, David shared his own experiences of exploring New York and how the city had transformed him over the years. Their friendship, forged in a short time, felt solid, a reminder of how quickly connections could grow in this city. Later, Lucas arranged to meet Maria, the artist he had encountered in the East Village. She brought him to her art studio, where she was working on a mural that captured the essence of New York. The painting was vibrant, filled with colors and movement, capturing the pulse of the city. Maria shared her journey of finding her artistic voice, and Lucas was inspired by her dedication and passion. Together, they talked about dreams, challenges, and the determination it took to follow one's passion in a city that constantly demanded more. Lucas also visited the elderly shopkeeper he had befriended at the bookstore, who had shown him New York's literary treasures. The shopkeeper shared stories of his youth, when New York was a different place, but still filled with the same energy. Lucas listened, captivated, as the shopkeeper described the evolution of the city. It felt like a passing of wisdom from one generation to another, a reminder of the lasting impact of history and storytelling. On his last night, Lucas gathered these friends for a dinner in a small, cozy restaurant he had discovered. They shared food, laughter, and memories, creating a night filled with joy and connection. Looking around the table, Lucas realized that New York had given him more than experiences. It had given him friendships and memories he would cherish. These connections made him feel truly at home, even as he prepared to leave the city. Saying goodbye to each friend was bittersweet. Lucas knew that they had all influenced his journey in different ways, each adding a layer to his experience of New York. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that the city had given him relationships that would last a lifetime. Chapter 23: A Day of Reflection and Gratitude. With just one day left, Lucas spent it reflecting on his journey, visiting the places that had made the deepest impact. He started his day at the 9/11 Memorial, a place that had touched him profoundly. Standing by the reflecting pools, he felt the weight of history, a reminder of the resilience and strength of the city. The memorial felt like a sacred place, a tribute to lives lost but never forgotten, and Lucas was grateful for the chance to honor it once more. Afterward, he returned to the jazz club in Greenwich Village, where he had first fallen in love with the city's music. The musicians welcomed him warmly, and Lucas spent the afternoon listening to soulful jazz that filled the room with energy and emotion. It was a reminder of the creativity and spirit that New York embodied. He closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. In the afternoon, he wandered back to the East Village bookstore, picking up a few books as souvenirs of his time here. The shopkeeper recommended a collection of poems about New York, and Lucas felt it was a fitting reminder of the city he had come to love. The stories within those pages would be his connection to the city, a way to relive his memories even after he had left. As evening approached, Lucas walked along the Brooklyn Bridge, watching the sun set over the skyline. The view was breathtaking, the golden light casting a warm glow over the city. He paused, taking in the beauty of New York one last time. It was a city of contrasts, of challenges and rewards, a place that demanded resilience, but gave back so much in return. Standing there, Lucas felt a profound sense of gratitude, knowing that this journey had been transformative. The bridge felt symbolic, a pathway that connected his past to his future, his dreams to reality. Lucas lingered, savoring the view, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and hope for what lay ahead. Chapter 24: Farewell to New York. The morning of his departure arrived, and Lucas packed his belongings with a heavy heart. As he left his hotel, he took one last look at the view from his window, committing it to memory. Stepping out onto the streets, he decided to take one final walk around the neighborhood, soaking in the sights and sounds of New York. Every corner, every sound felt like a farewell, a reminder of the memories he was taking with him. At the airport, he replayed moments from his journey in his mind. The thrill of his first night in Times Square, the serenity of Central Park, the connections he had made with strangers who became friends. Each memory was vivid, a reminder of the city's magic. As his plane took off, Lucas watched the city's skyline fade into the distance, feeling a bittersweet mixture of gratitude and sadness. This journey had been everything he had hoped for and more. He closed his eyes, picturing the streets he had walked, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. He realized that New York had become more than a city. It was a part of him now, woven into his story. Chapter 25: Carrying New York with him. Settling into his seat, Lucas felt a calm sense of closure. This journey had changed him in ways he was still discovering. And as the plane prepared for takeoff, he took a deep breath, savoring the weight of the experiences he was bringing home. New York had shown him resilience, creativity, and the power of human connection. It had been a place of discovery, filled with people from every background and walk of life. The city's pace had demanded that he adapt, grow, and find joy in the unexpected, lessons that would remain with him long after he left. As he gazed out the window at the city shrinking below, he recalled his initial fears and excitement upon arriving, emotions that now felt distant yet significant. The journey had started with a single goal: to experience life in a city so legendary that it almost felt mythical. But he had come away with much more: lifelong friends, moments of reflection, and a sense of belonging in a place he had once found intimidating. The city had become part of him, a home he hadn't expected to find, but now couldn't imagine leaving behind completely. Finally, Lucas closed his eyes, leaning back in his seat with a contented smile. He knew he would return someday, drawn back by the memories and the connections he had made. Until then, he carried the city's energy in his heart, a reminder of the adventure that had forever changed him. As he drifted into sleep, he dreamt of the city streets, alive and vibrant, knowing that no matter where life took him, New York would always be with him, a part of who he had become.